Home opener for the Bowling Green Falcons this Saturday. We are joined now in studio with Todd Walker, the voice of the Falcons on the BG Radio Network. Todd, thank you for spending some time with us.
Mark, great to be here. Great to have a home opener, have fans in the stands and all that. Bowling Green with back-to-back home games coming up.
They start off the season in Knoxville against Tennessee. A great atmosphere for Tennessee fans. A lot of orange, maybe not the correct shade of orange if you're a Bowling Green Falcon fan. They did lose to the Volunteers, obviously, but there was some positives they can take out of that game, particularly in the second quarter.
Yeah, the second quarter, everything went perfectly. I mean, the offense had two long drives, and the defense in between got a 3 and out. Now, the rest of the game, Tennessee really asserted themselves, but there were a lot of positives. I think we saw what the offense can do with Matt McDonald as he was healthy. The offense basically turned into short passes to alleviate or try to make up for the fact they couldn't run the football. But Matt was very effective. Austin Osborne, their new receiver, Matt's high school teammate, clearly clicks with his quarterback from high school. So offensively, despite a very young and inexperienced offensive line, I thought they showed a lot of promise offensively. I dug up this great stat. The Bowling Green offensive line on the depth chart coming into Tennessee had 40 collegiate starts. 26 of them were on the defensive line, the two guys that moved over to offensive line. So I think early they really struggled with the crowd noise and the overwhelming athleticism and the size of that front for Tennessee. But as the game went on, they got much better.
How concerned are you in that second quarter, the fact that you had those great drives but had to settle for field goals? Is that portending a problem going forward for Bowling Green, not being able to get into the end zone, having to settle for 3?
Well, it wasn't preferred, but I'm not too concerned. I think that was just a direct result of not being able to run the football against an SEC defense, especially with the offensive line the way it is at this moment. Sam Neverov, a projected starter, did not play. So I think what happens, inevitably, you get close, it gets harder to score. The thing that was encouraging is they kept those drives alive. They were long, time-consuming drives, and Nate Needham converted those field goal attempts. You know, when you've got an offense that's trying to get up to speed, you need to cash in those opportunities when you get them. I think that's encouraging moving forward in the schedule and in the MAC, that this team can string together first downs, and if things stall out, you've got an effective kicker that can put points on the board.
Other side of the ball, a defense that is still getting to know each other quite literally. A lot of new faces that came in during the summer, some transfers that, Scott Loeffler hasn't always been really active in the transfer portal. This year was different, brought in some fresh faces. Defense had an up and down performance, I think would be fair to say.
Yeah, the defense, you're right, the transfers in the back end really have helped out. Davon Ferguson, Devin Taylor are top shelf talents in that defensive backfield, and Bowling Green really has struggled in the back end in recent years. I think without those two, you would have seen Tennessee really have a lot more success in the throw game. They weren't that successful. They certainly were not efficient in the throw game. So I think defensively, I was pretty encouraged. Clearly, Tennessee could run the ball when they wanted to, and they did that a lot. That wasn't unexpected. But again, we keep referring to an SEC offense that can run the football and push you around. So I think defensively we saw a lot of good things. We saw very solid tackling. Darren Anders was the MAC East Defensive Player of the Week. He had the strip sack, was all over the field. So I think defensively they were solid against Tennessee, and really we saw some individuals step up and play very well.
We knew there was going to be a talent gap between Bowling Green and Tennessee. This week against South Alabama, that gap, is there a gap, or is it a much smaller gap between the Falcons and their opponents?
I would say there's still a gap. USA is very talented. They're loaded with players from Alabama, obviously, and Tolbert, their wide receiver, is getting a lot of accolades in the preseason, and I watched their game against Southern Miss. He's next level good. Coach Loeffler thinks he'll be a first-round draft pick, and I've seen other reporting to that effect. Falcons got to try to figure out a way to keep him from beating them, but they're very talented. They have an experienced quarterback who's played at 2 other schools. They held Southern Miss to 3 points and beat them up pretty good. This is a good Jaguars team coming in here.
You mentioned it. It's going to be the first game at Doyt with fans in quite some time. What are you most looking forward to seeing with the return of fans to the Falcon nest?
I'm just looking forward to having people tailgating and enjoying themselves and having a good time before the game. And then to hear all the things inside the stadium that you like to hear, the band playing and people singing with the band, and just the roar of that crowd when something good happens. It was great last week at Tennessee, even though that was all Tennessee people. But to see all that orchestration that goes into things with the fight song and chants that people do and things that everybody has at their stadium. We'll have that at the Doit this week.
Autumnal Saturdays in Wood County. It's hard to beat those. Todd Walker from the Falcon Radio Network, thank you for joining us tonight.
Good to be here.